Fantastic. Well, hello. Got it. Recording in progress. Hello and welcome to our webinar on leveraging data. For those of you where I'm an unfamiliar face, my name is Joshua Schur. I'm the VP of Strategy for Transitiv and have been working in the franchise space for over a decade. So it's a pleasure to see some familiar faces and names on the screen. And I'm going to be your moderator for today's session. So thank you again for everyone for joining us. The intention is we all hope you find this webinar to be informative and enjoyable. And before we get started, just want to go over a couple of guidelines to ensure that everyone has a real positive experience with our webinar today. That again is going to focus on leveraging data and creating clarity in your digital strategy. So please understand that other than the panelists, what we're doing is muting everyone else's microphones throughout the session to help minimize background noise. And if you have a question, we really encourage you to please use the chat feature in Zoom. After all these years with us living on Zoom, it should be very familiar of where that is. And we're going to be monitoring the chat and try to incorporate that and answer as many questions as possible during and after the panel discussion, which is going to take on the form of a fireside chat, which hopefully will be a little bit different and refreshing than what some of you are used to in the webinars. And secondly, we really want to have a fantastic and thought-provoking environment for all participants and the panelists. So please be respectful in whatever goes into that chat. That way we're all going to have a great experience. So now what I'd like to do is introduce each of our esteemed panelists one by one. What you're going to see is some brand highlights on the screen, and I'll let each of our industry leaders let you know about themselves. And because I can't pick favorites, not that I have any, we'll just go in alphabetical order by first name. So Mr. Ben Fox, throwing it to you first.
I thought this was because you had favorites, but yeah, Ben Fox. I'm with ProNexus, president of ProNexus, and we're the customer experience brand for 5-star franchising. So we do marketing as well as call center and IT support for all of our brands, and then we also offer call center support, appointments, lead handling, that sort of thing for the general franchising home service industry. So happy to be here, excited to discuss data and all the challenges and opportunities that we have here at 5-star.
Fantastic. Brian, the man with the famous entrance, throw it over to you.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, so my name is Brian Davis. I run our growth platforms at Scorpion. Scorpion's a digital marketing technology and services agency. Specializes in national franchise brands, large multi-local platforms. We've built specific technology around supporting those types of organizations. We work with a number of folks that you might recognize: Authority Brands, Neighborly, Fast Science, Got You Covered, and so forth. Also have a big practice in the healthcare space and in dentistry and in veterinarians as well. So obviously a lot of data, a lot of locations, a lot of things that we're pulling in, and looking forward to talking about it.
Fantastic. Toss it over to you, Conway.
So I feel bad that I only work for one company. Everybody else works for more companies, but Dreammaker is a franchisor in the home remodeling space, 40 plus locations around the country. And a ton of data. You will find that same thing to be said by all of us, a ton of data. So looking forward to our conversation today.
Great. Over to Christian.
Thanks, Joshua. My name is Christian Pillett. I'm the CEO of Transitiv, and I've effectively worked in the franchise space my whole professional career. I've done 2 software companies leading up to Transitiv, and then also been a franchisee of multiple brands. And Transitiv as a company, we created the first franchise intelligence technology. It helps brands unify, understand, and activate their data. So excited to share more about what we're doing and how data can be leveraged.
Fantastic. And then finally, over to the gentleman who's been dubbed the George Clooney of franchise, Paul.
I denied it if I could, Josh. We're clearly going with the saving the best for last approach here, but really good to be with you. My background is marketing. I have a marketing degree, got into digital marketing back in 2001, back in the heyday, the Wild West of this stuff. Have brought that marketing mindset to Gotcha Covered, which is a premier provider of custom window treatments across the US and Canada. We have 150 locations and counting. Fantastic reputation with our clients, and really looking forward to our fireside chat today.
Fantastic. Well, appreciate you all sharing your backgrounds, and now we'll get to the subject matter at hand of why we're all here today, which is leveraging data. So, we have an ugly truth, right? And that is franchise leaders who are operating with blind spots in their digital growth strategy. They're really just putting their systems at a disadvantage. So with that said, let's jump into our first topic. So it would be great to hear you all discuss with the group where you went with data in 2022. Where'd you go? Specifically, challenges you've had, blind spots you were able to identify. And Conway, I'm going to put you on the spot because we've had this conversation before, and I think you could kick us off beginning this chat with a pretty fantastic question.
I will try to, if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you.
Okay. I lost my display on my computer, so I'm flying blind at the moment. But my big question for the entire group, everybody here today, is how many spreadsheets do you use? And I say that because it's too many. And we spent 2022 trying to tally how many spreadsheets we do use.
What did that look like for you guys, Conway?
Oh man, Conway. So we've got, I just launched a poll. We've got over 70% of people saying they use 10 plus spreadsheets to manage their business.
Not
And that's
surprising.
that was the highest answer we gave. So
Not surprising at all. But what if you could operate on less spreadsheets, be more nimble, and have the data available to you without having to export it and use it that way?
Well, that's the thought-provoking question. So with that said, talking about 2022, Paul, I'll throw it back your way. Challenges you were looking at and that you faced, blind spots you identify.
Yeah, well, I like to work on analogies. And if you think about a classic hospital scene in any movie you've been in, right, where the patient wakes up and you're looking at through the camera, through their eyes, right? And the first blink of the patient that's waking up is very bleary and you can't see. Then the next blink, you can start to get clarity. In over 4 or 5 blinks, you can eventually see what's in the room with you. I think that's a pretty good way to describe this endeavor that every good franchise system should be on, which is to continue to get clarity in your data to be able to pull more and more meaningful information from it. It's not a switch. You don't just turn it on. It's a unless you're doing something that I would love to hear about, but it's more about a process by which we're all collecting data to some extent. Somehow, some systems are collecting data. The challenge for all of us, and I think it's universal across any real business like ours, is gathering that data, compiling it, making it meaningful, interpretive, and actionable. And that's a process. And so every year for us has been a leap or a step forward in that process. So we have at Gotcha Covered a proprietary system that we built specific for our industry and our franchise owners. And I think many franchise systems have that. And then what do you do with that? You have to now plug in other data sources. Scorpion would be a really good example. We're a partner of Scorpion, have been for many years. They're also collecting data. It's different data. There's a lot of it that interacts with ours. So how do we combine and pull their data into ours or ours into theirs in a way that we can share it and do something positive with? And then Transitiv for us layers on top of that. Transitiv reads all those things that we're doing and then presents another view for us and for our franchise owners. So it's never easy. I don't think it's a constant challenge. It's never going to be solved. It's only going to be managed, and it improves over time. And I hope that's a decent answer to the question.
Yeah, I'll tag on to that. So me and Paul work together, right? We're both in 5-star franchising. Paul runs Got You Covered, of course, and that's one of the 6 franchising brands. My role at the organization is to try to understand customer experience from the top of the funnel all the way down to close, and the continuing education and the continuing relationship, and enhance that. And we do that through in-house means as well as partnerships with the right software, the right partners. And we have the same challenges, right? We've had 5-Star has made several acquisitions in the last 2 years, grown from basically 2 companies to 7. And the path forward is going to continue to do that, continue to add brands to the family. And every single brand comes into the organization with at some stage in their data visibility. We have a sister brand that Got You Covered called Bio One, which is really at the infant stages of visibility from a franchisor standpoint. They don't have all of the tools in place, let alone the processes in place to see what's going on, to understand customer experience, to understand insights into the business. So back to the question for 2022, like my whole focus has been to identify opportunities where there has been gaps in services or the tools needed to understand visibility, and then gaps in process, the way that the franchisees are using the tools, that they're consistent in how they're using it so that it is actionable data. It's apples to apples comparison. And that is my experience been the biggest challenge, is getting consistency. We can all partner with the right tools, but then deploying them so that they're consistently used, so that it is insightful and you can run the analysis and it's helpful both for the franchisor and for the franchisee, has been our biggest focus for 2022. And like Paul said, it's never ending. We're going to continue down that journey for quite a while.
Yeah, and if I can tag on to that, I think that's where you landed right there is where we see are the brands that are in the leading position, or the ones that have gotten to the phase like Paul had referenced of really actionable data. You we kind of when we first start working with organizations, oftentimes they're starting with, we got a bunch of data, and then we try to help them get to the point where it's useful data. And then if we can get it from useful data to actionable data, that's kind of what I see where, the brands that are, that's the minimum you got to have to be, in the game and competitive. And I think that's where we're seeing, I think there's a lot of emphasis for us and like just get people actionable data and looking in the right part of the cloud of all the stuff they could spend their time on. Where do they need to go? And then give them something they can actually do something with. It's not a cool fact, but an actionable thing that says, here's go do something with that. I'd say where I think where we're going is you go from actionable data to acted on data, because we certainly have plenty of, I can think of many of our healthcare clients, things like that, where they've got actionable data, but it's not acted on data. It just was, I wish we would have done something, or it wasn't done. It like the thing didn't happen organizationally, or with their whether it be their marketing or whatever it might be. And I think that's where now we're starting to see the next stage of that for us. And I may be jumping the gun, Joshua, in terms of like the conversation, but I'd say we're going from actionable data to acted on data to who acted on the data. And is it a person, or, as we know in the last 3 months, or we now got ChatGPT and Skynet is live and all this kind of stuff is happening. The question is, who acted on it? Is it a person, or can we get a machine to act on it for us? And so that's kind of some of the things we're thinking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Josh, back to the path for Got You Covered in 2022. For us, there is a path and there are stages. We are working on still the data input side, where we want to make sure that we're collecting data from all the sources, compiling it in a reasonable way. But there's system generated data, and then there's individually entered data, and they're very different things. And you have to accommodate both, or we have had to accommodate both. I think most systems would agree, qualitative, quantitative data. So there's a training aspect to the data input side. And we're just kind of, as a company, we're getting to the point where that's about to be, at a point where we can rely on that data And then to Brian's point, it will become a training session for, like, it's a distinct stage, like, because we have to get there before we can take that next big step, because we have some data, and the some data that we have is good, but we're about to, really hit a point where, and we hired a company. So just for franchisors out there, we hired a company to come in and do an analysis and kind of an audit for us to make sure and give another set of eyes on our data and the reports that are creating. We want everything to be consistent because it has to be reliable to be actionable. And then that's going to be the next stage for Gotcha Covered, is the training. Like, okay, now we have this data. We have to let our owners, who are not marketers, right? They're not doing their stuff. What does this mean? How can it guide you in your business? And that's going to be imperative and critical to their ultimate success, like training them on what to do with it, how to do it, and then following up, as Brian had mentioned.
Great. And when we talk about actionable data, I think I brought up blind spots earlier. For those out there listening, in every stop that I've had in franchise, the common thing that I hear is franchisors say is, we don't know what we don't know. So in 2022, what specifically, because a lot of this sounds very buzzy, right? But if we're going to get down to the nitty gritty, I think some of our attendees would be like, oh, that's pretty cool. I didn't even think to look at that. But specifically through data, what blind spots were you able to identify in 2022, relevant to your systems?
So Joshua, I'll take that from a transitive point of view. So I think really where we've come from with data in the last 3 years is pretty amazing. I think franchises probably starting 2 years ago for the first time had the ability to integrate different sources of data together because of available systems that can pull data from a lot of places and kind of transfer it really easily. So I think for 2022, what we saw most of is, for the first time, franchisors starting to combine marketing data and operational data, or marketing data and finance data. So when you're trying to optimize your marketing campaigns, historically, like, you go to Google and you optimize for a conversion event, but if you optimize for a conversion event, that may not actually impact the outcome in your business that you want. So the outcome you may want in your business is work with some aid services. It could be new recurring customers. If you're optimizing, if you're collecting data from all over your organization and kind of optimizing for the outcome you want, that's the number one thing that I kind of saw a trend of in 2022.
Yeah, that's been a big benefit for us. For one of the brands we actually initially rolled out Transitiv with, it was, I think, within my experience within 5-star, was the first brand that we really married the marketing and operational data points and had the business intelligence view from the top all the way down to the end. And so they're kind of the gold standard. It's Bath Solutions. 5-star Bath Solutions is the brand. They're kind of the gold standard of what we're trying to replicate within all the other brands. And it's a challenge because, like I said earlier, there's deficiencies throughout that data collection process, or there's systems that are missing, or they're not being used the correct way to have that visibility. But it's been insanely impactful, both to the corporate team, but also the consultation that we have with the franchisees, to be able to go in and have a simple dashboard that does show all the way through the customer journey, and be able to consult them and make insights and make decisions, moving marketing spend amongst all the different marketing players that they partner with. Those things are actually happening, and it's mind-blowing that we've been have operated without that for so long. But the truth is that that's where we've been, and so replicating that is so much urgency. It's the biggest bet we're making within 5-star.
I think there's a corollary to what Josh brought up earlier. That you said you don't know what you don't know, and I would say you don't know what you think you know. Also, for the same reasons, because the amazing mantra of garbage in and garbage out will continue on. So how do you ensure that that thing you're focused on has the right data to see. So it's sort of a both and, I think, of yes, we're looking at this. How reliable is that thing that I'm looking at? For us in 2022, we thought we knew what we knew. We don't. We know probably 75% of what we need to know, but there's another 25% where it's just not there. People aren't entering the data, or it's not coming from a system. So to me, it's all these things at the same time.
And I'll add to that, Conway, well said, because one of the things that in terms of a blind spot we realized in 2022 was that our participation in the garbage in, garbage out, the manual entry stuff was not as complete as it we thought it was. We assumed it was, and Christian and Transitiv helped us see that, and that changed then for us the reliability factor, right? Because if 40% are entering data versus 80, that completely changes our confidence in that data. And so that's something to be aware of too. And again, Transitiv helped us see that, and then we could identify that as a challenge that we needed to address specifically to improve adoption and participation in our technology.
Yeah, I would say that we see there's kind of two kinds of blind spots in data too, right? There's the kind of blind spot that's actively hurting you that you're not aware of, and then there's the blind spot of it's an advantage if you just knew about it. I mean, we had one client that we were working with them kind of in the lead up to building their, we're still in process right now, but as we were evaluating the state of the union with somewhere 160 some odd locations, they really didn't understand why some locations just were hurting, and they didn't, like, it just didn't make sense. I mean, in terms of some of the web data and this kind of things, like we just couldn't triangulate on it. And it wasn't until we overlaid an evaluation of social rankings on top of things that we recognized, like, oh, these particular locations, the social rankings and reviews on top of those, it exposes everything in terms of you've got these that are actively your reviews, just that one thing is actively hurting their business. It's they're actively hurting. And they had been neglected for a long time. So, we got to put a strategy in place for that. But on the flip side of that, we've got a veterinarian brand, and there are a lot of different locations. It's not one platform, but same business, just replicated over and over and over again. And the marketing team recognized there was this kind of one distinction that was driving really efficient marketing without a whole lot of marketing spend for these locations. And just by virtue of seeing the whole thing, we were able to take that and then go, okay, let's take that recipe and run it again everywhere else. And we got the benefit of it. And so we're always looking for those two things. But obviously it's the ones that we don't see, as Conway is talking about. It's probably the scariest ones. What's hurting me that I don't know about?
Yeah, for me, there's always the concept of leading indicators and lagging indicators in business. And when we're talking about marketing data, it's always a leading indicator of future events that happen in your business. So I think historically, like, franchisors would always look at how a franchisee is performing on their P&L or on their balance sheet. And that's when they would make an adjustment if the franchise was kind of struggling financially. But by pulling in these marketing data points, the leading indicators and the operational data points, you can actually make tweaks or adjustments in your business like 45 days in advance. And like the data gives you the power to do that. The data gives you the power to predict what your P&Ls might look like in 45 days. And for franchisees, 45 days is a lifetime. Like, a lot of people, having been in a franchisee, I mean, you invest a ton of money in this thing, and a lot of people don't have a ton of cash on hand. And the ability to make a tweak in your business to improve your margins, or make a tweak to invest marketing dollars where you're getting more financial benefit in the end, is just a huge advantage that I think franchisors can start taking advantage of.
One simple one that we do is intensely monitor percentage of marketing spend. Pretty simple calculation, but very powerful in how it works itself out in the life of a franchise.
Conway, how do you measure that? Where do you pull from to get that?
Yeah, that was my question.
So that for us would come from a platform called QVinci that consolidates all QuickBooks data, and then you can pull out that percentage of marketing spend, and and then you can say to your franchisee, you said you were going to spend 5, you've spent 1.5, and you're complaining about lead flow. I wonder. So for me, the mantra always is less is more. So if there's one that can create action and who acted upon and how did that work out, that's what we want to shoot for wherever possible. But it's only possible by combining different data sources together. You need to have that to be able to take action on it, to make it available.
Conway, do you guys have to rely on franchisee entered spend as well? Or is it all just come through QVinci?
All comes for us, it all comes through the QuickBooks activity of those individual franchisees that then rolls up to QVinci, and then for us rolls into Transitiv.
Very cool.
Yeah, so something interesting that we do and we take with that information is we always create leaderboards. So when Conway is talking about the example that you're only spending 1.5% when the recommended is maybe 10%, Conway, I'm not really sure.
At the beginning, if you're a startup, yes. If you've been in business a long time, for us, and you have a bunch of referrals and repeat customers, then your marketing spend can come down and you can be very effective. At the beginning, though, yeah, you're going to be closer to the 10% category.
Yeah, so sharing, like when a franchisee logs in, looks, and they're like, wow, I'm at 1.5% and everyone's above me, but why am I doing poorly? It's like, well, yes. Maybe you should take this one metric up a little bit, and that'll start to normalize the rest of the flow of your business.
And I'll just add, Conway, again, another point I'll talk on. You have integrated QuickBooks into your system and your reporting, and that's presumably because you have that built into the franchise system. That got you covered. That has not been a part of our franchise system. It is now. But for any franchisor or any marketing person out there or operations person, it's okay. Like those blinks of an eye, that hospital guy, that waking up, that blink could be 6 months, could be a year, could be 2 years. It takes time to do this. And there's no better time to start than now. But so for Got You Covered, we had to say, like, we much prefer sort of a connection with QuickBooks. We'd love to have that, because now we know the data is flowing automatically versus our owners currently entering their marketing expenses manually, right? It's a very different, result. And so we have now in 2023 mandated QuickBooks online for all of our people, because we know that eventually we're gonna want that, we're gonna need it. So the payoff's not going to be, this year, or even maybe even next year. Maybe we start to see that, but you got to build on it, and you got to. And everybody's in this situation. Everybody's got their own unique set of operating procedures and tools and resources, and you just got to start putting it all together. And eventually, it'll come together. You really can make progress, but it just takes time to get there.
For us, it's been a multi-year journey.
Yeah.
None of this you just go
right,
and you're going. But yeah, I would agree with everybody else. Like, there's no better time to start than today to make your way down that path. However you can.
Paul, you took us into topic 2. If you did it on purpose, great segue, which is thinking about 2023. Now you just 2022, and Conway, you said today. So for topic number 2, it's as you're looking to capitalize on everything in 2023, what specific issues are you going to look to resolve, and what role is leveraging data going to help play in helping you to get there?
I don't want to speak too much, so I'm biting my tongue, but we at 5 Star have made a significant investment in building out kind of a data warehouse to capture all the data points. We're going to continue to invest in that, continue to enhance it. That's both for the financial reporting side of our business, but also for the operational success of franchisees and the brands. We also are, plug intended, we're going to continue to roll out Transitiv to the brands that it makes sense, so that franchisees and the brand operations team have a tool in place, easy to use, that they can go have conversations and drive change, drive decisions at the local level. That's a lot of work, and that's probably going to take up the first 6 months of the year, but that's what we're initially focusing on.
Yeah, for us, we're looking to automate our franchise reporting. Currently, it's, believe it or not, it's a spreadsheet sent in via email. So there's one of our spreadsheets.
That's still true for us, just in case.
Okay. Yeah, right. So we all have, I imagine us and any franchise system has their strong points, right? We're really good at this, but man, we need really help on this. And it, you know, this is a monster, right? Getting data under control, wrestling it under control and making it actionable. It's a huge thing. And there are so many different pieces. It'd be great if we could just, you know, take them all and meld them together in one shot, but it just takes a lot of time, dedication, and effort. And so I've loved being part of the 5-Star family because they have the will, the resources, and they understand how valuable and important that is, not just for the individual brands, but to pull it all together. So yeah, so we'll automate monthly reporting. We will also, again, I mentioned that integrity check. We want to make sure that our data is actionable and reliable. And then from then, maybe the second half of the year, it's back to training, and it's hey, here's the data, here's how to use it, here's how to make decisions, interpret it, all that stuff. So that's what our plan is for 2023.
So for 2023, I'm going to sound a lot like Ben for a minute. We were anticipating, planning to build a DreamMaker data hub. Us being reliant on another platform or set of platforms for where our data lives is a nerve-wracking concept, although it has been how things have been. So we're actually in the process right now of kicking off a project to begin the DreamMaker data hub to pull everything in a way that then you can use other front ends if you needed to, and the data's your data, and then you can take action on it and do what you need to do with it. That's a gigantic undertaking. It sounds fairly straightforward when you say it in the sentence, but the reality is it's going to take a long time to do. It's going to take most of 2023 at least to get that going. And then the other thing right alongside that is, and I think you almost have to do this all the time, what have we missed? We've taken this complete list of all our data sources and all our things. What are we still missing? What is it we don't have a finger on, or a viewpoint on, or somebody focused on, that we didn't quite get the first time around or the second time around? Because I think that the process just continues on. It's never done. It just keeps going.
So I'm going to pause here for a second. Ben, you mentioned you guys are investing in a data warehouse. Conway, I knew you guys are investing in a data warehouse. I just typed in a poll question for everyone. I'm interested to see how many franchises actually have a data warehouse. So I'll share the responses once we get to pullback, but it seems like from everything we experience and from everything the industry is sharing, the first step is consolidation of data, and the creation of that data warehouse or data lake or lakehouse is the place where you want all of your franchise data going. So we've got 9 answers so far, 50. It's basically an even split. A little over half, 5 people have a data warehouse and 4 do not. So probably for the brands that don't, it could be an opportunity to look into is creating a data warehouse and starting to bring your franchise data together. I mean, Ben and Conway will tell you it's a really hard problem to solve when you have 150 locations like Paul, and you have 8 different systems per location that you have to actually create a connection to. You all of a sudden have over 1,000 integrations to manage at a single brand. I think that math checks out.
Yeah, spot on, Christian.
Yeah, close.
Yeah, it's extremely expensive for sure.
Yeah, Ben, how long have you guys been working on that?
Over a year, right? It's like we see the future need of it. the value that it's going to bring to the organization. It's kind of like, when's the best time to plant a tree? 40 years ago. Second best time is today. We are already getting value out of it, especially for our financial side of the business, the CFO and his team. But data's king. Like, data's where you drive the biggest impact for the business. It's one of the few things that a franchisor can provide value to a franchisee on. We can't run the business for them, but we can provide them insights and expertise because of sound data. And so we have to do that undertaking now if we're going to get to where we want to be in the future. I can understand why brands don't do it, though, at least at certain stages, because it is so expensive. We've partnered with an outside firm, a friend I went to college with actually, as well as our own IT team, and it's kind of a mutual collaboration, and it's been really successful, but it's taken us a year to get to where we are now, and probably $150,000 in actual, contractor spend, let alone all the time and energy and focus of our own team. But it's a necessary investment for us.
Yeah, something, Ben, that I always share is, like, having been a franchisee, it feels like a lot of the coaching you get is subjective and anecdotal. And it's like, hey, this guy in Texas is doing this and it's worked really well, so you should try it over in, New England or out in Utah. And like, data actually fixes that problem for franchises, because franchises hire oftentimes franchise coaches that are 25 to 35 years old, potentially no business ownership experience, and these people are expected to go consistently coach actual business owners, and they're doing it kind of based on what they're hearing oftentimes. So by consolidating all of your data, kind of normalizing it across every location, you can share insights into here's how you perform versus the network here. And a lot of that for me is the reason that people buy a franchise initially. Like, you buy a franchise because there's a marketing playbook that works, there's an operational playbook that works, and then when you get in and you get the anecdotal coaching, like, franchisees are a little disappointed. So I think it solves more than just like a business optimization problem. It solves like an emotional need that franchisees have too.
Yeah, Christian, if I could tag on to that, your point about the about the leaderboards, right, is so important, because until you know relationally where you are versus everybody else, you can easily be in this place of feelings instead of facts.
Yep. And
that's where, and frankly, when people start the franchise, a lot of feelings, right? I've made the big investment. It's a new thing. I hope I haven't made a mistake. I mean, all those feelings are coming up, but then if you've got this nice, and this is again one of the powerful things that Transitiv does, is it just gives you a relational way to understand where I'm at, right? Because I could even have the most beautiful dashboard, but if I don't know what it is related to relative to others, it still doesn't necessarily make me feel any better or worse. Am I doing good? Am I doing bad? But that's why having that is really clear is so important, because it takes, you can get the emotion out of it. At least, you can put it in a different bucket, so it's not mixed up, the feelings aren't necessarily mixed up with the facts. And I'd say that's like, in terms of back to your question, Joshua, I mean, that in terms of 2023, that's some of the places that we are working is how do we make those leaderboards and stack ranking and relation to each other? How do we set that up better internally and also for our clients and the franchisees? But even we're also moving into a place where even between platforms. So we've had some folks in private equity, for example, they said, okay, we've got this platform. How is it, right? Well, it's how do you compare one platform versus another? And so we've discerned some ways to start to compare platforms versus each other, even if there are different numbers of locations and things like that. So it still comes back to your point, Christian, of like, I don't know where I'm at until I know where I am relative to others.
Yeah.
And so like that's I think a really powerful thing that you guys make easy, or easier rather, on that piece. So
as a business owner, and especially as a franchise owner, I always say context is key. Like, if you don't have context for where you fall or where your numbers are at versus like what would be industry standard or what's standard in a franchise, it's just really hard to make an informed decision.
Yeah. And we see that. I'd say that we also, I mean, we kind of take the from a Scorpion internal perspective, the way we operate internally, we've got, you know, thousands of clients. So we are stack ranking clients internally so our own internal team can see, oh, okay, here's something that's good. Here's where they're ranking, all of those pieces. But even then, as you might expect, internally, we start to run into a problem just because of the amount of volume of data. And that's where it kind of comes back in, that overlay of, okay, cool. We've operated in a world of actionable data. That's what our clients, you know, trust us to do, is find the actionable data and then do the thing. But then at some point, there's so many data points and so many different aspects of what your presence is. You've got to have not just acted on by people. That's where that's where Skynet comes into play. And you go, okay, well, what pieces of this can be acted on by AI? And you know, in 2023, I'd say, Joshua, that's one of the big places where we've already been doing this for a couple of years in our advertising and the way the advertising works, but the application of AI on other things like video, content, SEO specifically, like that's a massive amount of data. And usually, especially like something like SEO, it was a lot of manual things. You'd have a bunch of teams. So we turn that over to have people, more of the actionable data turned over to machines that allows us to spend more time on the real key levers. So that's kind of what we're seeing. It's like that we're in that shift. And as the last 90, 120 days have made that, like, if you don't have that as the next phase of how do I put a machine on some of this, you're just going to be at the brands that get it are going to be at a massive competitive advantage.
Right. And we had a question come in from one of our attendees for our franchisor panelists. And again, this is taking the form of a fireside chat. We're going to try and address as many questions that come in as possible. So please don't be shy, toss them in the chat. This one is, how do you handle inconsistencies in franchisee reporting? The example is franchisees logging data inaccurately or incompletely. And if you did put something in, an implemented solution in place, have you seen an improvement since doing so?
I will say that that's an ongoing challenge for us. I don't know that we'll ever perfect that, because it is just human nature, right? So for us, our owners, when they get a lead or when they make a sale, they choose the lead source from a drop-down list. So we control the list that they choose from, but somebody may describe it differently than somebody else, and so we know that. So the end result for us is it becomes just less reliable. So when we interpret the data, we just have to understand that it may not necessarily be as black and white as you would think if you're just looking at a chart or a graph. You have to interpret the data that you're getting. So I don't know that that's ever going to be fixed. Even if you plug QuickBooks into your data warehouse, people enter things in QuickBooks differently than they will. I mean, so I wish I had a better answer, and if somebody else does, I'd love to hear it. But I just think that that's something that's just continually managed over time.
Something we've done, and it's not a one size fits all, obviously. Gotcha Covered's in 5-star, and we don't mandate the call center, but the call center does improve that data capture point much more effectively than a franchisee on their own. We can do it with process, scripting, and the same methodology. So we have consistent data at that point in the customer experience that flows into the CRM. But that doesn't fix everything, but it's been really successful for a lot of the brands that we have 100%. The call center is a part of that business. That's one reason we are in the call center business, is for that specific problem.
So across all the brands we work with, one thing that the Transitiv platform does is create transparency around like all the data points. And what we found is that we can pretty quickly call out franchisees that are the ones that are inconsistently logging or incompletely logging data. And franchisees seem to be, because they're getting transparent data back from across the system, they seem to be far more likely to actually want to get good data into the systems. So it's not necessarily a solve, but it is, like, I'd say if you can share data, create transparency around your data, you're going to get a lot more engagement in terms of accuracy and completeness of data.
Yeah,
I think it turns into a carrot.
Yeah.
I don't think
Correct.
I think it could be a stick, but I think it turns into a carrot. And for us to try to keep it as a carrot, at the beginning, we're going to focus one KPI above the one we really want to know. So if I focus on my marketing cost per lead and my marketing cost per sale, I can look at those numbers and know that whether Bob or Sue or Ted or Jane put that lead source in as something other than what I expected, what they spent around that is still what they spent. And then as soon as somebody goes, why can't I see my marketing dollars by source? Because your data is garbage. I can't show you that yet. If you're willing to do this, this, and this, and we unify this up a little bit, we can open the rest of that up. That may not be the most popular way to go, but I'm not sure how else to, in our network, I'm not sure how else to get there. If I can show you some, and then I can tell you I can show you more if we get it right.
that's exactly what we're doing as well, using it as a carrot. The gamification, as I call it, that Transitiv has been able to provide us with the racking and stacking has been really helpful with that competitive nature of franchisees.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're showing them across the various key KPIs that we've determined drive the business forward, and you show them, yeah, you have nothing there. It's like, oh, change of process. I'll start doing that, and it's one win at a time. But that's the best practice that we've implemented as well.
Awesome. Christian, I see a Matt Johnson raising his hand. Matt, didn't see you put anything into the chat, but Christian, I am brave enough to let Matt speak. You did it.
I did it.
I don't know.
Hey guys, I appreciate it. So when you guys talk about data points, what are you talking about collecting, and where do you collect them from?
Short answer is everything you can get your hands on that you deal with. I know that sounds crazy at first, but everything you can think of that you rely on right now, you want to try to pull in, especially the main ones, but you're going to want the other ones to be able to bounce against each other to get those.
Yeah, so let's talk about those basic dashboards. Like, what are you guys really looking at when you talk about those data points?
So Matt, for us, let's say got you covered specifically at the top of the funnel. We're like even looking at number of impressions on the website, to clicks, to form fills, to online bookings, right? Scorpion is what provides a lot of that to us. And then down through the customer journey, we're looking at phone call volume. We're looking at conversion to an appointment. That's pulled from the CRM. Some of that is from the system, like the process inputs that information. Some of it is franchisee fed, which is typically less reliable. And then ultimately we're getting to number of those appointments that turned into a sale, and the average cost per, or the average revenue per sale, and reoccurring value of that customer. Did they buy again, and the lifetime value of that customer. So those are like, every brand's a little different, at least in 5 Stars experience. Every brand has their specific KPIs that are important. The marketing ones are largely the same, but the operational KPIs that drive the customer through that to purchase and beyond vary by brand.
And I'd say that upstream from Ben, we're tracking not just the lead, but where did it come from? What was the journey of that person around the web to eventually come there and make the phone call? And the beauty of, like, you got the consistency of the data, what Ben and the team are doing and what Paul's got, is you can turn the loop and get the flywheel going, which when the wins happen, that then informs everything that, the next round of what happens upstream in terms of marketing and optimizations and all that. So I think back to what Conway was saying, ideally you want to be getting all of that. Really, I think some level, it really does take a team to triangulate all these things. It's just impossible to do all of it in, one place, because there's so many variables. But I think if you can go, consistent set of good data to, Ben catches it and Paul operations, and then we can get that flywheel, and Christian's got the dashboard. You can get that flywheel going. That's where that turns into an advantage. It just does, for the franchisees and for everybody downstream. I don't know if that answered your question, but I think Conway got it right off the gate. It's everything, as much as you can get.
Well, and I would say, to add to that, I would say, now that everybody else is focused in farther, we laser focus on one. We know that one of them is the biggest bellwether of everything else. We care deeply about everything else. What we're going to focus on the most is, are you selling at the appropriate margin? Now, everything else feeds that. I need to have all the leads, I need all the impressions, I need all the clicks, I need to have marketing, I need to have all of those things are vitally important. The one we're going to focus on the most, that we've known over time will impact the performance of a franchise, is, are you selling at this margin? And then right after that, because ours are longer projects, are you producing at that margin? Or are you losing money in between? So for us, it's everything, but it's also a laser focus on the one we believe makes the most impact.
We've seen the same thing. It boiled down to like two things or one thing per brand that actually drive their success.
But you can only get there if you got the rest.
Yeah.
So it's a both and, I think.
Matt, from a Transitiv point of view, we have connected with hundreds of integrations. Typically, we'll see like 3 to 5 marketing integrations per brand. We'll always see a CRM or a point of sale to pull operational metrics. We pretty much always see a customer feedback after the service is provided. And then usually we'll get like a QuickBooks or accounting integration as well. So really, if you think about your business, marketing drives sales, sales drives operations drives finance, and finance, like you want to collect feedback at some point in there. I would just try to cover every piece of your business as it goes through the life cycle.
Gotcha. Yeah, makes sense. Thanks. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, of course, we have to cut things short to be respectful of people's time, but that's going to conclude the time that we have for the fireside chat and questions. Safe to say there are several key takeaways. The first is the age-old adage, data is king. I think Ben said that at some point in the panel, and that's never resonated more true than it does in the present. Specifically, what we hope you take away from today is that data clarity at the corporate and franchisee level, it's really critical for your brand success and maximum growth. And, not going to throw a shameless plug out there. There's been enough nice things said about Transitiv and Scorpion, and we are happy to help. But, whether it's us, whether it's another solution, brands should really be looking to utilize platform solutions that are going to help you centralize and track and quantify your network's data into actionable insights so that you can enable franchise operations at an optimal level, right? So in closing, thank you to our panelists for sharing your expertise and insights with us today. It's awesome. Hope we all get to be back here today on a different day under a different topic. It's been a pleasure having all of you. Thank you to everyone who participated in today's Leveraging Data webinar. We're all going to be in Vegas in a little over than a week. It's exciting to say, it hurts to think about a little bit. And we hope to see you in person at our booths. Ben has a booth as well up here. So Ben, you could throw out what number it is, but Scorpion and Transitiv are pretty close. We're almost neighbors there at 311, 313, 401. So we hope to see you. Feel free to schedule time to chat. Again, we're here to help. Our contact information is on the screen. And I promise you that you can find any one of us individually on LinkedIn. Happy to answer any questions that you may additionally have. So we hope you found this discussion informative and engaging, and hope you all have a great day.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
See you.
Here.